Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in this big, beautiful world that God has made. Welcome to UltraLife Today. As always, we're bringing you very interesting, innovative people that are doing some creative things to help you be the best you can be to live your ultra life today. And I'm sitting here today with CEO, founder of Ultra Botanica, Adam Payne. How are you, brother?
Hey, Josh. I'm good.
Good. And our special guest is a return visit for those of you that were demanding an encore presentation. We have Mary Jane Frye from Medic Pharmacy here in Oklahoma City. She's a PharmD, and she does some really innovative things in testing in the genetic space, in really dialing in onto the root cause of different situations that you may be experiencing with your health, and then how to navigate your way out of that to your best life. So, Mary Jane, welcome to the broadcast again. It's so good to have you back.
Great to be here.
People love you, by the way. We always hear great comments about you when we have you here, so
That's very sweet.
We're happy to have you back.
So, Mary Jane, I always like to go back to the origin story of people.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know you that are listening to us now, Mary Jane.
There's a Bible scripture that starts with they overcame the world by the blood of the Lamb, and the second part really was always interesting to me. It's the word of their testimony, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that each one of us have a unique testimony of how we got to where we're at, right? And you've certainly I would put you in a handful of people that have made it their business to change people's lives for the better, right? You've poured yourself out in order to improve people's lives around you, and you've developed a whole plethora of tools and approaches. You have a pharmacy that has unique capabilities to it that is unlike any other pharmacy here in Oklahoma City, and I would say in probably very unique in terms of other places around the country. But did you wake up one morning when in that kindergarten class, and when they said, "Well, Mary Jane, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Did you say, "Well, I wanted to be a clinical nutritionist and have a PharmD"? How did you get to here?
Well, and technically, I am not a clinical nutritionist by certification or anything. I love nutrition now, but I definitely was not a nutritious person growing up. Definitely, that's a late in life shift for me.
We talked a little bit about your story previously, but really, what was the spark that got you where you're at today?
Well, my aunt was a nurse, so she always wanted somebody to do something medical, and I was scientifically inclined to do something in the science world. I wasn't sure I liked blood. And so I didn't think I wanted to really be a doctor or be a nurse. Had a friend whose brother was going through career choices several years before me. And so I was maybe 7th or 8th grade when he was making his career decisions. And he was reading about pharmacy. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, being science, but not blood. And
interesting.
And I could get into that. So fast forward, I went to pharmacy school, was very traditionally pharmacy trained for the most part.
Which university did you go to? Or
I went to Southwestern Oklahoma State.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So came here by weird ways, but I ended up in Oklahoma at Southwestern. And it was very community-based, and I was a talker. Everybody will say that I'm a talker. And so community was perfect for me. It was a good fit. And during, probably the first 10 years of my career, we had a person who came in and started talking about supplements and triggered my interest to a degree. And then the pharmacy...
Were they a kind of a naturopath with the pharmacy, or were they just... what was their bent, and how did they...
It was just... it was a guy, a salesperson, but he was just talking about his supplement line.
Interesting.
And he actually asked, I was pregnant at the time, and he asked if anybody was pregnant and were they taking fish oils. And at that point, nobody was really talking fish oils for pregnancy.
Oh, interesting.
And so, or omegas. And so I didn't do it. But come to find out, it would have been, good for my boys to have had that into their system.
Really?
You know,
So it helps developmentally?
It helps developmental, junctures and all of that.
Interesting.
So that was my first take into it. And then our compounding pharmacy, we had several pharmacies that were grouped together here in Oklahoma City, Medic Pharmacy and Don Cootie Pharmacy. We were all together. And with that, I was invited to go to a hormone seminar because we were starting to compound some bioidentical hormones. And so I went to that seminar, and that kind of started the ball rolling in learning about hormones and getting deeper. And I was talking to a young lady actually this week who's just starting out, a pharmacist who's just starting out in the world of integrative pharmacy and stuff. And I said, it was easier for me because I got to start with hormones. And then they said, oh, you should learn about thyroid. And then, oh, you should learn about adrenals. And, oh, you should learn about gut. So I got to learn them one at a time and meld them into the practice. And she's getting thrown into having
everything
to learn
all at once.
everything at once. So I really do feel like mine was a slower transition into things.
Mm-hmm.
But
was this at a time when hormone therapy was just starting? Or, I mean, what sparked your interest in this bioidentical hormone kind of direction? Because it's unusual a little bit.
It was, especially back then, but it had to do with Premarin was coming out of the spotlight because Premarin was...
Well, what was Premarin for our audience here?
Premarin is and it's still around. Yeah. It's a horse estrogen-based product for menopause. And there was some research coming out in that time frame that was more negative to the horse estrogens and more going towards bioidentical, which means that they're the same hormones that our body makes naturally.
So not extracting it from a horse, but essentially getting the biosimilar to what our bodies actually make. Interesting.
Exactly. So that
was a whole new world of understanding at that point in time.
Correct. And compounding was getting going, and so compounding pharmacists around the country were looking at ways to individualize patients' hormone therapies.
So not just one shoe fits everybody's size, but what is the unique makeup? So I'm just curious. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole, and maybe it's... but how would you even go about determining which hormones to use for somebody?
Well, testing is what you need. That's the key, is testing.
So you would look at the unique profile of the hormones.
So each woman, we would do saliva testing. I still use saliva testing. Not all practitioners use saliva testing, but I learned about it early on, and I believe the science behind it. And so I've used saliva testing almost continually whole time.
And can I ask Mary Jane, because a lot of our listeners have had the different blood panels and things done. Saliva testing has been around a long time now. People that are into integrative medicine and health know about it. But what would you say the difference is in doing saliva testing and why you feel that's a more accurate way to test?
So what I have been taught over the time is that, number one, when practitioners go to school, they get told that hormones are really not very well tested in blood, but it's all we have, and so we use it.
Okay.
And some don't even use it on a regular basis. They go by symptoms alone. Saliva testing is looking at the fat-soluble side of the
interesting.
Fluid, because serum is not where hormones like to live. Hormones like to live in the fat. So in the saliva, there are red blood cells, and that's where they like to live. Now, there is something called whole blood testing, and if you do whole blood testing, you're getting the water-soluble side and the fat-soluble side together. But when you do only serum being pulled out of the arm, they spin off the blood out of the arm.
Yeah, so all of the cholesterols and lipids are essentially thrown away, and then you're left with whatever fraction is measured in the blood, and thus it's inaccurate.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Potentially. And it has to do with timing.
Right.
And so there's a lot of factors, but I feel that is a very accurate form, and so I utilize that. There's now come about some urinary metabolites, and we can learn things from the urinary metabolites also of the hormones.
But that's not necessarily quantitative because you don't know what the volume of urine that somebody's producing over time, et cetera, right?
Well, it's a dried urine spot.
Okay.
And so it's going to be for that specific time.
Got it.
And so it can be done first urine in the morning and get a reading.
That makes sense.
Similar to the blood spot, from the saliva. So those are the three difference. But the urine is only looking at the metabolites. It's not looking at the actual hormones in the system. So
wow. So then, hold on. So based upon that profile, I'm just excited about this stuff. I'm a little bit for a selfish reason because a very near and dear loved one of mine is just going through menopause right now, and I'm trying to nudge that person in a positive direction. So I'm learning here, right? And I hope our listeners are bearing with me while I'm learning a little bit about
Sure. And we've got a couple of minutes left to break.
Yeah. Okay. So So based upon that profile, you would then supplement up to what you would consider to be a healthy hormonal profile for a woman?
So what I do now is I get their symptom chart. So we're looking at symptoms. We're looking at what else is going on. Because as you know, if stress is involved or thyroid's involved, the hormones, it's all part of a triad.
Right.
You have to be delicate and work together. So I'm looking at symptoms. I'm looking at what else is going on in their system. And
I'm just curious.
The triad?
Yeah, what is the triad?
The adrenals, the thyroid, and the sex hormones.
And the sex hormones.
Right.
So adrenals. So what are the adrenals that you look at? It's the
adrenals. We typically look at cortisol.
Cortisol. That's right. And then the thyroid T, the T3 free T's and all that stuff.
Free T3, free T4, and then we
say that 10 times fast, right?
Right. And we also try to look at antibodies to make sure that it's not an autoimmune thyroid issue.
Oh, interesting.
Going on.
So that could be especially important if somebody already has an autoimmune disease.
Yes, especially the autoimmune thyroid. But yes, if somebody has chronic
fatigue,
or they have rheumatoid, or they have lupus,
or psoriatic arthritis.
Exactly. All of those, their adrenals are going to be taxed on a daily basis. And so that's going to tax the other side of the system. So we've been working, it's been 30 years that we've been doing some form of the hormone.
So this was your entry into this whole new world.
Yes, it was. And at the same time, I had a son that was premature. I had a sister that was going through menopause. I had a mom in her 80s. And so there were all these different things going on.
Teachers. I call them teachers.
Absolutely.
Right? They were teaching you.
Yes. So, and now every day I have new patients that teach me things. So it never stops.
Okay. You've been listening to UltraLife Today. We're having a fascinating discussion about hormones with Mary Jane Frye and how to dial in on what's wrong and how to get better.
How to get at what's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here with Adam Payne, the CEO and founder of Ultra Botanica, and we will be back shortly. UltraLife Today. Welcome back to UltraLife Today. I'm Josh Bellew. I'm here with Adam Payne, and we're having a great visit with Mary Jane Frye. She's a PharmD, but she has branched way outside of just dispensing drugs, and she does a whole host of unique tests at Medic Pharmacy in Oklahoma City. As a matter of fact, I'd love to mention to people how they can get a hold of you, Mary Jane. There's a phone number to call. It's 405-755-3921. That's 405-755-3921. And then you can actually reach out on their website to email Mary Jane at medicpharmacy at sbcglobal.net. That's Medic Pharmacy at sbcglobal.net. And you can peruse their website at medicokc.com. Well, Mary Jane, I think you have a story to share with us that may be addressing Adam's last question. So we're looking forward to hearing that.
Well, I think everybody always has a story as to why they get into functional medicine, integrative medicine. And so I was just down in Houston a month ago, and one of the speakers was a infertility specialist, gynecologist.
Oh, wow.
And he had shifted into functional medicine because when his wife started going through menopause, they were on the East Coast, and she told him that he had to fix her. And he wasn't doing a very good job of fixing her because he didn't know how to really fix her.
Makes sense.
And they were at a meeting, and she was by the pool, and she was reading this magazine, and she found this story about integrative medicine, functional medicine, working on hormones. And he came out to the pool, and she was crying, and he said, "Honey, what's wrong?" And she said, "This is me. This is what's going on."
Wow.
And so he took it, and there was a part of the story was talking about A4M, which is one of the functional...
Aging and Regenerative Medicine Fellowships.
Exactly.
That's right, yeah.
And she said, "You have to go to this meeting and learn more." And so that was his start down his functional
Honeydew
pathway.
list amended. Don't take out the trash. Don't clean up the kitchen. Go to the A4M.
Go to 4 more years of school so you can fix
Just
me.
add another fellowship to your title, dear.
So he was fascinating because he was working in the realm of endometriosis and PCOS. And
So he was a gynecologist.
He was a gynecologist and fertility specialist.
That's right. You did say that,
Yeah.
right? And it just passed right through my brain and out the door.
So now he fixes people with nutrition. He says every infertility person that he sees now, before they get any other information, he tells them to go gluten-free. And
Oh,
he said-
interesting.
and then he said a percentage of the women will be pregnant before they ever finish doing the testing.
Oh, my gosh.
So
Interesting.
that is just, to me,
What?
so fascinating.
Hold on.
Inflammation.
Well, okay. So it's,
It's called the placebo-prego effect.
No,
No,
Josh.
it's not placebo.
Oh, I guess a fertilized egg, if you have an inflamed mucosa in the uterus, it's not going to implant, is it?
Or the fallopian tube,
Or-
or the
right.
ovaries being inflamed. No, there's just so many different things that could be.
Subclinical inflammation. There's something to that, isn't there?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
So, Mary Jane, I got a question for you. So, back in the day, and you remember back in the day when there was this certain subset of hormones, and a lady is going through menopause, and it was just almost routine that they were going to be given certain hormones from their doctor. And then we find out some of those hormones can potentiate cancer and other things. So what have you seen as a difference from the tools you had then to the tools you have now? And then specifically, could you dial in on the kind of results? Because I suspect as a pharmacist, you have all these people coming in and asking you questions. And many times that would probably drive a person like you to educate yourself. So you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, I can't really help you. I'm limited in my scope of what I can do. So what is the difference between what you used to do, 20 or 30 years ago and what you're doing now? And what kind of results do you see that are maybe different?
Josh, the tools are absolutely completely different.
Right, they're
different.
completely different. We just had the saliva testing and blood for different things, but we really didn't know what even to look for in the blood.
Okay.
So now we have so many extra tools. For me, everything has stacked on itself. So the saliva testing, understanding the gut more. And I've really just dove into doing the stool testing in the last year or so.
Okay.
So I'm learning that as we go. And then this urine metabolite testing, looking at neurotransmitters in some people. There's just so many places. And then my new love is genetics.
Right.
The 3x4.
The 3x4 genetics. Adam and I have talked about it before a lot.
Right.
In fact, that was the subject of our last our time together.
We did talk about
it.
it.
Yeah, the 3x4 was really a lot.
So the genetic piece fits into the whole hormone piece and to headache piece or cholesterol piece or brain piece. in such a unique way. And what the 3x4 genetics people say is that you're going upstream to then be able to see what's going on in the right pathways.
So with what you just mentioned about genetic testing, these days, do you have a leaning toward wanting to do that as a foundational tool that will make it easier for you to dial in on what else is wrong?
I do. And I'm very cognizant about people's finances. And so I don't want to overload their finances.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to get to the gut. And so sometimes I'll say, okay, let's do the gut first, but I really want this genetics soon. One wonderful thing from 3x4 is they just dropped their price from $350 down to $299.
Lovely.
And so that's going to be beneficial. And they have the ability to build flexible spending in health savings accounts now.
Oh,
That's
that's really
both
cool.
of those two things, I think, are going to give us more potential to use that. But you're still, you can see what the hormones are doing, but it's one day in the cycle. And so when you can see the genetics of where your risk potentials lay, you can fix things at a different level. So if a hormone patient has slow detoxification or missing pieces to detoxification, that's going to affect their hormones. If they have hormone glitches in vitamin D, or if they have B12 glitches, those are really important. When it comes to histamine, we were talking about histamine before we started. Right. Histamine actually has an interconnection to the hormones because histamine is what they call an amine, and the hormones are amines. And so if your histamine's off, then your hormones can be off. And I learned several years ago that if somebody has a glitch in their histamine, they're taking in too many histamine foods, or their system doesn't break down the histamine properly, then they are probably going to be more prone to morning sickness.
Oh, interesting.
Wow,
than
that is
somebody who.
And if you can solve the morning sickness thing, Adam, are you listening?
Yeah,
we need to file a patent. We need to do something here and commercialize this.
It's pretty fascinating to be able to see that can be a piece.
Wow.
So,
but you only see that if you're looking at all of these disparate pieces and bringing them together into kind of a clinical picture, right? A holistic picture.
And sometimes people will come to me and they'll already have done a lot of testing. And then I'm trying to look at it all and bring it together. And it's not always a one and done appointment. Sometimes it's going to take a couple appointments to get that done. When I sit down with somebody, it's an hour-long appointment. When they're in with a doctor, they might have 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes they get 30 minutes. And so I feel like I can dig deeper to ask some extra questions that they might not have been asked before. Like one question I learned from a webinar was, when did you feel your best?
Oh, interesting.
And so if you find that out, then you can have better ideas of where things started.
I think I was around 6 months old. There
are people like that, honestly. And so that makes a difference.
Wow.
You know, if somebody's gut was giving them troubles when they were young, then we need to go down that gut pathway or look at the genetics to go with the gut. Is it the histamine foods? You know, is it external allergies? Is it hormones? One woman, it was more related to a stressful situation in college, but then everything triggered.
Oh, so there was like some trauma then that came out of
and even like antibiotics. We have a dear friend that's a naturopath and a clinical nutritionist, and as a young boy, I think at 9 years old, he got a really high dose of penicillin, and it just completely leveled his flora in his gut. It just took it away.
And he was in depression.
He was in depression for 40 years.
Wow.
It was just crazy.
Because of the serotonin access coming from the gut, right?
And he repopulated his gut, got on a simple 5-HTP product, and it was literally a change that took place within a matter of a couple of weeks.
So, Mary Jane, when did we got 2 minutes here. Do you remember any particular case early on that you just, the light bulb went on and you're like, this is what I want to continue to do for the rest of my life, or this is what I want to focus on?
Oh, there have been several of those dramatic changes in women after menopause.
Yeah.
So perimenopause can go for 15 years.
What?
And when women don't know that this slow change is hormonal, then they hit the wall at menopause and they think it's just started. But it really probably started 10 to 15 years earlier, because as women's eggs start slowing down, they start not bursting as many eggs in ovulation, and the progesterone is depleted. And so that's a lot of the starting point. But progesterone is interconnected to GABA, and estrogen's interconnected to serotonin. And so you have all these mood changes happening. So one woman came in and she was having panic attacks, fear, anxiety about leaving her house.
Really?
And
so it's like, what's it, agoraphobia kind of deal? Is that what, I mean, I think there's something like that where a fear of going out of your house and into society.
I mean, she didn't describe it specifically like that, but she said she was very social. She used to have parties at her house. She didn't feel like having parties at her house. She was afraid to drive down the highway.
Oh, wow.
And within a time frame, she was getting better. And so that was one early on. Another one early on was this woman who was very OCD in her own description.
Okay.
She said she would literally measure, like they were planting trees in their backyard, and she had the tape measure, and she was making sure every tree was the exact amount apart from the other tree.
So it's very pedantic about how everything was happening. Interesting.
Packing for a trip the same way. Everything was very precise. And when we put her on the hormones, she said that level of intensity dropped, and she didn't need to be that precise about everything.
Interesting.
And I thought that was fascinating. So
and she was happier.
I suspect her family was too.
I'm sure her husband was like, oh my God, getting it down to like 1/10 of an inch difference on those trees.
Yeah.
Not really important, you know?
So those were, some of those early ones that I can still remember. But just helping women sleep, is dramatic. Energy, when you can help them, find their energy.
Speaking of women's sleep, we still tell the story, Mary Jane, about the lady that had the hysterectomy.
Well, she had a cancer with she wasn't allowed to have estrogen.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to go to break.
We're going to go to break, and maybe we'll come back with this story.
We will. You've been listening to Mary Jane Frye. I'm Josh Bellew. That's Adam Payne, CEO of Ultra Botanica on the end, and this is UltraLife Today.